Captain Elias Draven was a man who trusted his instincts more than his ship's glowing instruments. He had flown across forgotten systems, survived storms that bent metal, and faced enemies who believed humans were too fragile for the void. Yet tonight, as his small vessel drifted through the edge of the Andralis Nebula, it was not instinct that warned him, but a faint signal repeating over the static of space. It was a distress call. Draven leaned closer, his tired eyes narrowing at the translation flickering on the screen. The words were broken, the language ancient, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone was begging for help. He adjusted the frequency, tracing the signal to a patch of cold space where no planet or station should exist. His gut told him it was trouble. His heart told him he couldn't ignore it. "All right," he muttered to himself, tapping commands into the console. "Let's see who needs saving this time." His ship, the Resolute, glided forward. Soon the darkness gave way to the dim outline of a raider vessel, an old warship scarred but deadly. Raiders in this region were infamous. They struck colonies, stole supplies, and sold prisoners to whoever paid most. Draven's jaw tightened. If the distress signal came from that ship, then whoever was inside was in grave danger. He had no backup, no fleet, no allies, but he had his courage and a stubborn streak that had carried him through worse. He docked quietly, slipping through the outer defenses before the raiders noticed. Armed with only a pulse pistol and a blade strapped to his side, Draven entered the cold corridors. The stench of oil and smoke filled the air, and the faint hum of engines echoed around him. He moved carefully, every step measured, listening for patrols. He found the prisoners' cells after a tense search. Most were empty, but one held a small figure. A child. She sat curled against the wall, robes torn but embroidered with patterns far too rich for an ordinary traveler. Around her neck hung a crest glowing faintly, a symbol of royalty in the Sarathi Empire. Her eyes widened at the sight of Draven, a human stranger, but she did not cry out. She simply whispered, "Help me." Draven's heart ached at the sound. He scanned the lock, shaking his head. The raiders had installed heavy security, but human hands were clever. Within minutes, wires sparked, the lock clicked, and the door slid open. The child stumbled into his arms, clinging to him as though he were her last hope. But the rescue was not over. A shout rang down the corridor. Raiders had spotted him. Draven cursed under his breath and pulled the child close. "Stay behind me." Blaster fire erupted, bright flashes painting the shadows. Draven fired back, moving with practiced precision, his human reflexes just sharp enough to keep them alive. He ducked, rolled, and struck with his blade when the enemy came too near. The raiders fought like wolves, but Draven fought like a man who refused to leave a child behind. Step by step, he pushed toward the docking bay. The child followed silently, fear written on her face but trust in her wide eyes. She did not scream, did not run, only held tight to his coat as he shielded her from harm. Finally, they reached the Resolute. Draven shoved the hatch open and guided her inside. More raiders appeared, their voices harsh, but the ship's systems roared to life. Engines thundered, and as the airlock sealed shut, the Resolute broke free from the raider vessel with a burst of speed. Draven let out a long breath, slumping into the pilot's chair. The girl sat quietly beside him, staring at the stars. For the first time since finding her, she spoke more than one word. "They will chase us." Draven glanced at her, surprised by the calm in her voice. "Then we'll make sure they never catch us." She tilted her head, studying him. "Why did you help me?" "You don't know me." He gave a tired smile. "Because someone had to. That's what humans do." The child touched the crest around her neck as if remembering who she was. "I am Princess Kaelin of the Sarathi line." Draven blinked. Royalty. He had rescued the daughter of one of the most powerful rulers in this sector. His mind raced with possibilities, reward, recognition, maybe even an alliance between humanity and the Sarathi Empire. He imagined landing on the capital world, handing over the child, and hearing the Queen herself thank him. But for now, none of that mattered. For now, there was only the quiet hum of the ship, the child safe by his side, and the stars stretching endlessly before them. Captain Elias Draven had no idea that returning the princess would not bring him honor, but a snarl that would change everything. The journey to the Sarathi capital world took several days. Captain Elias Draven spent that time repairing small damages to the Resolute and keeping the young princess safe. She spoke little, but her sharp eyes missed nothing. Sometimes she asked about Earth, and Draven told her small stories, about oceans wider than cities, skies filled with birds, and children who played freely in the rain. Her quiet wonder reminded him why he had risked everything. He had saved an innocent life, and now he would return her to her family. When their ship finally approached the Sarathi homeworld, the sight was breathtaking. The planet glowed like a jewel, with rings of light encircling its surface. Fleets of sleek silver ships patrolled the skies, and shining towers rose from sprawling cities below. It was unlike anything human eyes normally saw, for the Sarathi Empire rarely welcomed outsiders. Draven sent a transmission announcing his arrival. The response came quickly, stern voices ordering him to lower his weapons and follow a strict flight path. He complied. Soon, the Resolute was swallowed by the massive hangars of the royal palace, a structure carved into a mountain and crowned with spires that touched the clouds. The princess walked beside him as they left the ship. Guards in bright armor surrounded them instantly, their expressions hard. At first, they aimed their weapons at Draven, but when they saw the child's crest glowing at her throat, they bowed and stepped back. Word spread quickly. Courtiers, nobles, and soldiers gathered in the great hall as Draven was escorted inside. The chamber was vast, with golden walls that shimmered like firelight. At the far end, seated upon a throne of crystal and steel, was Queen Sarathis herself. She was tall, regal, and wrapped in robes of deep blue that seemed to shimmer like the night sky. Her crown glowed faintly, a sign of power passed down through countless generations. Her eyes, sharp and piercing, fixed on the child. Draven felt a surge of pride. He stepped forward, guiding the princess ahead of him. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head slightly, "I bring to you the daughter who was taken. She is safe now. I thought it right to return her to your arms." The hall fell silent. The child's face brightened with hope as she took a step toward the queen. But then the queen's expression changed. Her lips curled, her eyes narrowed, and her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You dare," she snarled, her words echoing against the golden walls. "To bring foreign blood into my presence?" Draven froze. He looked at the child, then back at the queen, confused. "Foreign blood? She is your daughter. I rescued her from raiders. She carries your crest." The courtiers whispered among themselves, their voices buzzing like angry insects. Some looked at the child with pity, others with fear. The queen rose from her throne. She moved slowly, her steps heavy with anger, and stared down at the girl. The child reached out her small hand, whispering, "Mother." But the queen did not take her hand. Instead, she turned her sharp gaze on Draven. "Human," she said coldly, "you think you have done a noble deed, but this child is not mine. Look at her eyes. Look at her skin. She carries a trace of blood that is not Sarathi. No heir of mine would be tainted so." Draven felt his stomach tighten. He glanced at the girl. Her eyes were indeed slightly brighter, her skin carrying a faint hue different from the queen's. But to him, she was still a child, still innocent, still worthy of protection. She was alone, Draven argued. She was in chains. She called for help, and I answered. If she is not your daughter, then who is she? Why would raiders guard her with such care? The queen's face darkened. She motioned to her guards. "Take the human," she commanded, "and remove the child from my sight. She is no kin of mine. If he brought her here, then he is part of the deceit." The guards moved swiftly. Draven tried to resist, but heavy hands grabbed his arms, pulling him back. The child cried out, struggling against the guards who dragged her away. Her small voice echoed through the hall. "Don't leave me, please!" Draven fought against the grip of his captors, rage burning in his chest. "Listen to her. She's your blood. Can't you see?" But the queen turned away, her expression carved in stone. To her, the decision was final. Draven was forced down a side corridor, the echo of the child's cries fading with every step. The grand walls closed in around him, shadows swallowing the light of the great hall. Inside, his heart pounded with anger and confusion. He had risked his life to rescue the child, hoping for gratitude and peace. Instead, he found rejection, suspicion, and the chilling truth that something far greater was hidden beneath the queen's words. For the first time since entering the Sarathi Empire, Captain Elias Draven realized he was no hero in their eyes. He was a stranger, a trespasser, perhaps even a threat. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. The queen was wrong. The child was not a stranger. She was family to someone, and she deserved more than being cast aside as foreign blood. and Draven would not let her be forgotten. Captain Elias Draven sat in a dark stone cell beneath the palace. The walls were damp, and the only light came from a narrow slit high above. Heavy iron bars sealed the entrance, and guards stood watch outside with cold eyes. He had been stripped of his weapons, his ship taken, and his freedom denied. Yet what stung more than chains was the memory of the little princess being pulled away, her cries echoing in the golden hall. He leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. "I save her life, and this is my reward," he muttered bitterly. Thrown in a cage like a thief. Hours passed before anyone came. At last a servant entered carrying a small tray of food and water. She was young, her face partly hidden by a hood, but her eyes flickered with curiosity. "You are the human who returned the child?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. Draven raised an eyebrow. "Yes, and apparently that was a mistake." The servant hesitated, then lowered her voice further. "Not a mistake, a danger. You should not have brought her here. The Queen cannot accept her. The court would never allow it." "Why?" Draven asked, his voice sharp. "That girl wore the crest." She called the Queen her mother. "If she is not the princess, then who is she?" The servant set the tray down, eyes darting toward the guards. The Queen's true daughter was stolen years ago, taken in the night by those who wanted to weaken her reign. Some believe she died. Others whisper she was hidden, her blood mixed with something not Sarathi. If that child you rescued is truly hers, then she is no longer pure, and purity matters more to the throne than truth. Draven clenched his fists. So they'd rather throw her away than accept her? She's just a child. She needs her family. The servant's gaze softened. "You speak like a human. But here blood is law. Without pure blood, no one can rule. That is why the Queen denied her. If the court believed their heir was tainted, the empire would fracture." Draven's chest burned with anger. He had seen injustice before, but this felt worse. To save a life only to watch it cast aside like it was nothing. It went against everything he stood for. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me the truth. Do you believe she is the Queen's daughter?" The servant hesitated, then nodded faintly. Her eyes. Her face, yes. She looks like the Queen once did as a child. But if I speak such words, I will be silenced. Before Draven could ask more, the guards barked at her to leave. She hurried away, leaving him with more questions than answers. That night, Draven could not sleep. He thought of the little princess locked away, frightened, perhaps wondering if he had abandoned her. His hands tightened into fists. "No," he whispered. "I won't abandon her. Not now, not ever." The next day, Draven found his chance. A storm rumbled outside, shaking the palace walls. The guards grew restless, some leaving their posts. When the opportunity came, Draven moved fast. He feigned illness, luring one guard closer, then knocked him unconscious with a swift strike. Stealing the keys, he slipped from his cell and into the winding passages of the palace. Shadows cloaked him as he moved, his mind sharp with purpose. He did not know where the princess was held, but he trusted his instincts to guide him. At last, he reached a small chamber guarded by 2 soldiers. From inside came a soft, muffled sob. His heart leapt. It had to be her. Draven waited for the storm's thunder to mask his movements, then struck with speed. A quick blow, a stolen blade, and the guards fell silently to the ground. He pushed open the door. The girl sat on a low bed, her eyes red from crying. When she saw him, she gasped in disbelief. "You came back," Draven knelt beside her. "I told you I wouldn't leave you." She threw her arms around him, clinging tightly. For a moment, he let her cry, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Then he pulled back, looking into her eyes. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "The Queen says you're not her daughter. But I know that isn't true. There's something they're hiding. Something they don't want anyone to know. I'm going to find the truth. And I promise you I'll protect you." The child nodded, her small hands gripping his. "They call me foreign, but I feel like I belong here. I remember the palace, the gardens, my mother's voice. I don't understand why she doesn't want me." Draven's chest tightened. He could not explain the cruelty of politics to a child. All he could do was give her hope. "You're not alone," he said. "Not while I'm here." Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the corridor. More guards were coming. Draven stood, pulling the girl to her feet. "It's time to move," he whispered. Together, they slipped into the shadows of the storm-lit halls, hunted by soldiers and weighed down by secrets. But Draven's mind was clear. He would uncover the hidden truth of the stolen princess. no matter the cost. And when the truth came to light, the Sarathi Empire would never be the same. Captain Elias Draven moved silently through the shadowed halls of the Sarathi Palace, the young princess clinging tightly to his hand. Every corner seemed alive with the whispers of guards, courtiers, and servants who feared the wrath of the queen. But Draven had learned something in his long life. Fear was predictable, and fear could be used. The storm outside rattled the palace walls, masking their footsteps. Draven's mind raced. He knew he could not simply escape with the child. If the queen truly believed she had foreign blood in her child, she would send the Empire's forces after them. No, they needed evidence, proof that could not be ignored. "We need to know why the queen denied you," he whispered to the princess. "There has to be a reason deeper than what she said." She nodded, her small fingers tightening around his. "I remember. Shadows in the halls. Whispers in the night. Someone wanted me taken away." Draven's heart skipped a beat. It confirmed his suspicion. The theft had not been random. It had been planned, carefully, with knowledge of the royal lineage. "Then there's more at play here," he murmured. "Someone within the court wants to control the throne. They used you as a pawn." He led the princess through secret passages he had discovered during his earlier escape. These corridors were forgotten by most, built centuries ago for emergencies. Dust lay thick on the walls, and faded murals hinted at a time when the Empire valued exploration as much as rule. At the end of one passage, they found a small room with a single figure inside, a scholar, hunched over ancient scrolls and glowing data crystals. The man froze when he saw them. Who are you?" he stammered. "I'm someone trying to save a child," Draven said sharply. "Do you know why the queen denied her?" The scholar's eyes flickered nervously. "You should not be here. If the queen knew, she would—" "I don't care what she would do," Draven interrupted. "I need the truth." The man swallowed hard. "Very well, but you must be careful. There are factions in the court, powerful nobles who want the throne weakened. Years ago, they orchestrated the kidnapping of the true heir. They made it appear the child had been lost, then spread stories of tainted blood. The queen, she was deceived. She believes lies whispered in her ears." Draven's eyes narrowed. "Deceived? You mean she rejected her own daughter?" The scholar nodded gravely. "Yes, they manipulated the queen's fears of purity. And now the child you saved is considered dangerous. If the court discovers she is alive, it could lead to civil war." The princess clutched Draven's arm. "So they lied to my mother?" Her voice was small, trembling. Draven knelt beside her. "Yes, but lies can be uncovered." "That is what we must do. We find proof of your true identity. Then no one can deny who you are." The scholar pointed to a hidden chamber in the palace, one that contained genetic records and historical archives. "There is evidence there," he said. "But it is guarded heavily. Only someone clever and daring can reach it." Draven's lips curved into a determined smile. "Lucky for you, that's exactly my skill." That night, under the cover of the storm, Draven and the princess slipped into the hidden chamber. The door was secured with complex locks, but Draven's human hands, trained over decades of mechanical work and survival, unlocked it with patience and precision. They entered the room, walls lined with glowing data crystals and shelves of ancient documents. For hours, Draven examined records, cross-checking names, birth dates, and genetic markers. Finally, he found it, a series of encoded files confirming the child's identity. The documents proved she was indeed the queen's biological daughter, taken and hidden to manipulate the line of succession. He held the proof in his hands, his heart pounding. "You see, you are truly the princess," he said softly, looking at her. "They cannot take that from you." But as he prepared to leave, a warning bell rang. Guards had discovered the intrusion. Draven cursed and grabbed the child, holding her close. "We move now," he whispered. "No one can stop us." They dashed through the palace corridors, chased by the sound of shouting and armored boots. Draven's mind raced, thinking of how to escape with the evidence intact. He knew that simply fleeing would not be enough. The Empire needed to see the truth, or the conspirators would continue to control the throne. Reaching a small maintenance exit, he activated the override, opening a hatch to the lower levels. Water and steam hissed from pipes above as they climbed through narrow passages. Behind them, voices grew louder. Guards were closing in. Draven glanced at the child. "Almost there," he said, and she nodded, trusting him completely. Finally, they emerged into the night. The palace loomed above them, its spires dark against the stormy sky. Draven knew their fight was far from over. The evidence they had uncovered could change the fate of the Empire, but it could also put them in even greater danger. Still, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity's stubbornness, courage, and desire for justice had brought them this far, and for the first time he realized that human determination could not be ignored, even by an empire built on centuries of tradition. Together, Draven and the princess disappeared into the storm, carrying not just a child but the truth that could ignite change. The conspiracy had been revealed, but the real battle, the fight to restore the rightful heir, was just beginning. The storm had passed, leaving the Sarathi palace glistening under the pale light of 2 moons. Captain Elias Draven and Princess Kaelin crouched in the shadows of a quiet courtyard, the proof of her true identity clutched tightly in his hands. They had survived the palace's dangers, outsmarted the guards, and uncovered the hidden conspiracy. Now the only challenge left was to face the queen and reveal the truth. Draven studied the palace gates. The queen's forces would soon discover their absence, and every moment counted. "We must go in carefully," he whispered to Kaelin. "We need the proof to reach her hands directly. If anyone else sees it first, the conspirators will try to stop us." Kaelin nodded. Though she was young, her eyes shone with determination. "I want to see my mother. I want her to know the truth." Draven smiled faintly. "And she will. We just need to get there first." They moved quickly through the palace grounds, avoiding patrols and slipping through hidden doors known only to palace staff. Draven's human instincts guided them, every movement precise and calculated. With the proof of her identity secure, he felt a rare sense of hope. Humanity's persistence, logic, and courage had carried them this far. At last they reached the throne room. The doors were massive, guarded by 2 of the Queen's elite soldiers. Draven took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Princess Kaelin," he said softly, "this is your moment. Remember who you are?" Kaelin stepped ahead, holding the documents high. "Mother, I am your daughter," she called. The guards hesitated. No one had ever dared speak to the Queen in this way. Before they could react, the doors opened and the Queen herself appeared, her eyes narrowing as she saw them. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" the Queen demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. Kaelin held up the evidence. "This proves I am your daughter. The conspirators lied. They took me, hid me, and told you I was tainted. But I am your blood." Draven stepped beside her. "Your Majesty, I risked everything to bring her back. The child you rejected is the rightful heir. Look at the records yourself. You cannot deny this." The Queen's eyes flicked to the documents, then back to the child. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to touch the papers. Murmurs spread through the throne room as courtiers gathered, curious and fearful. "This cannot be," the Queen whispered. How could I have been deceived?" Draven stepped forward, his human confidence shining through. Sometimes rulers are told what they want to hear instead of the truth. Lies are easy to believe when they protect power, but the truth will always prevail if someone has the courage to fight for it. Kaelin's voice trembled, but it grew stronger. "Mother, I am your daughter. I am not foreign. I belong here. Please see the truth." The Queen studied her child's face, searching for signs, for proof beyond the glowing papers. Slowly she knelt to the floor, looking into Kaelin's eyes. Memories stirred. Whispers of lullabies, laughter in the gardens, a warmth she had thought lost forever. Tears filled her eyes. "My child, my true daughter," she whispered. The courtiers gasped. Some bowed, others looked stunned. The room was silent except for the Queen's voice, soft but filled with emotion. Draven watched carefully. He had seen this before. Humans were not the only ones capable of courage and stubbornness, but sometimes it took persistence and clear evidence to break through pride and fear. And here the Queen was breaking. The Queen embraced Kaelin, holding her close. The child's small arms wrapped around her mother, and for the first time in years the palace felt warmth instead of tension. Draven stepped back, allowing them a private moment. He had not come for reward, yet a quiet satisfaction filled him. He had acted not for glory, but for life, for justice, and for the truth. Humanity had made a difference. When the courtiers realized the truth, many bowed in respect to the child and the Queen. Some whispered about reform, about changing the rules of the empire, about valuing justice over fear of tainted blood. Draven smiled faintly. Small steps, he thought, but even small steps could change centuries. The Queen straightened, looking at Draven with gratitude shining in her eyes. You risked your life to return my daughter. I do not have the words, but know this. Humanity's courage will not be forgotten. You have changed my empire. Draven shook his head. No thanks needed, Your Majesty. Seeing her safe and you reunited is enough. That's reward enough for a human. Kaelin looked up at him with a shy smile. Thank you, Captain. I will remember you always. The Queen placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Let this day be remembered not for the conspiracy or the fear, but for the courage that returned what was lost. Draven stepped outside into the open air. The sun was rising over the Sarathi capital, painting the city with soft gold light. He knew his work here was done. He had arrived as a stranger, a human in an alien empire. Yet his actions had changed history. Sometimes, he thought, humans were underestimated because others did not understand their stubbornness, their desire for justice, and their willingness to act when it mattered most. Today, that very humanity had saved a life and restored a throne. With the wind at his back, Captain Elias Draven walked toward his ship, ready for the next adventure. And somewhere in the palace, Princess Kaelin and her mother began to rebuild trust, knowing that truth, courage, and humanity could overcome even the deepest conspiracies. The Sarathi Empire had changed forever,